Hello everyone, welcome back to Believer CS Academy Bengaluru. This is the daily news analysis. Today we'll discuss some 4 to 5 important articles from UPSC prelims, mains and interview perspective. The first article for 16th 9 2025 is from the editorial of the Hindu. It talks about unlocking innovation with India's procurement reforms. Unlocking innovation through India's procurement reforms. We'll see what they're talking about. What is the context here? The context is with respect to procurement and research and development tension. That is designed for transparency and cost efficiency. India's procurement rules often slow down the innovation. Because of the stringent procurement rules, we are not able to focus on research and development. The innovation was curbed here. Next, June 2025 reforms. Changes in the general financial rules. Exemptions from mandatory use of GM portal, higher direct purchase limits, and decentralization of tender approvals. So, this reforms from June 2025 showcase a different trend from its past. It is setting a new precedent for the future, where it is going to bring innovation because there will be lesser legal hurdles. You don't need mandatory use of GM portal, government manufacturing portal, or there is higher purchase credit limits now, and also decentralization of tender approval. So for tender approval, you don't have to wait long for now. So the article discusses about these things. What are the other key features of the reforms of June 2025? First is bypassing GM for specialized equipment. Direct purchase limit raised, that is 1 lakh rupees to 2 lakh rupees. Next, tender approval delegations. VCs or directors can approve global tenders up to 200 crore rupees now. Next, safeguard retained, that is departmental committees still needed for high value procurement. So up to 200 crores, you don't need government's approval or anyone, you can just approve by the vice chancellors or directors in colleges. Next, implications. What will be these implications here? By providing easier procurement rules, now it is going to result in positive implications as well as certain negatives as well. First, we'll discuss the positive implications of allowing easier procurement rules in the universities and colleges. First is it reduces the bureaucratic delay. You don't have to go to offices or bureaucratic offices. You don't have to wait in the online for GM portal. Then it recognizes bespoke need of R&D. What is the important need of R&D? That it is more freedom is there and it is timely. Okay, now with the lesser hurdles, it will be more timely and more freedom will be provided here. In that aligns with catalytic procurement, that is procurement as a driver of innovations. What are the limitations? The limitation is that rupees 2 lakh direct limit still small for the advanced fields. 2 lakh is very good move from 1 lakh to 2 lakh is very good move, but it is very small for the deep technologies where you need research and developments, where you need higher investment, that is quantum, biotech, etc. The 2 lakh rupees is going to be very small, and global tendering may sideline Indian suppliers unless domestic R&D is strengthened. Next, risk of misuse due to discretion as well. This requires certain monitoring, that is the approval up to 200 crore rupees, as in case of any office in India, can be misused by the vice chancellors or directors. So here some sort of monitoring is required. Then global lessons. What can we learn from other countries? In Germany, high-tech strategy, that is Coino agency mission-oriented procurement. That is the procurement is based on the mission-oriented. So in the procurement there are lesser delays and more innovation. And USA, small business innovation research, that is SPR program, where 3% federal R&D funds are given for startups. Okay, so they are focusing on startups. So 3% of the federal R&D funds. The 3% of federal R&D funds of USA is almost equal to our half of the GDP. Next, South Korea. In South Korea, pre-commercial procurement paying premium for the prototypes. Okay, so again here also, whenever you are doing the research and development, once you overcome the prototype, once you start producing the outcomes, once you start producing the real producers which can be used in the market, there will be certain premiums that will be paid by these companies who are paying your pre-commercial procurements. Next, European Union, joint procurement agreement for pooling demand. So these are some of the different procurement methods which India can use for startups and universities and colleges. Historical evolution of procurement. In the ancient times, procurement was record keeping, mainly Egyptian scripts, and Industrial Revolution cost centric. World War's strategic role in scarce resources, the steel, iron, etc., important resources were mainly kept for the wars rather than development. So it was strategic role in the scarce. And post 1945, NASA contracts, European Union green procurement. So this focused on NASA and European Union green procurement, etc., on the post 1945 because the wars were less. The strategic importance of war was less, and now the scarce materials can be used for betterment. Next, today, cognitive procurement with artificial intelligence. For example, Pfizer vaccine, where the procurement is based on the need of current days, that is artificial intelligence and deep tech, etc. Next, future direction suggested, that is outcome weighted tenders. Okay, outcome weighted tenders like the Finland, where evaluates the bid on the innovation potential, scalability and R&D input. Okay, so it is more like outcome. How much of your research and development is going to help in the future? How many of the research and development producers that can be scaled up? How much of it is going to help in research and development? How much of it is going to help in the GDP of the country? Based on the outcomes that are possible out of the research and development, finances are provided in Finland. Next, sandbox exemptions, that is IITs, TIF are exempted from GFR up to a threshold. Very good move. And AI augmented sourcing, that is use India AI for supplier scanning, customs predictions to streamline this procurement process. And co-procurement alliances, that is labs pull demand for expensive items, pool demand for the expensive items like cryogenic coolers and hybrid governance models, that is USA Sandia Labs private management but government mission control. Next, the broader takeaways from this is procurement should shift from compliance versus fraud prevention to innovation catalyst. We should not always focus on the compliance and fraud prevention. We should focus on how the funding for this research and development is going to result in innovations, how that can be scaled to production, how that production can be improved to GDP. So we should move towards innovation catalyst. Privatization alone is not enough. Hybrid models and accountability matter a lot. India's reforms are a start and not a full paradigm shift. So we have to wait and see what India is going to do with regard to this one. But the June 2023 reforms are welcome move in this aspect. Next, India's economic ambitions need better gender data by Pooja Sharma Goyal. So whatever India's economic ambitions are there, they should not forget one thing, that is the gender data. First, the context is women's contribution to GDP is only 18%, though women are half of the population. And in the female labor force participation rate, 41.7% rate is there, but only 18% of the women are employed in the formal sector. The challenge is India's 30 trillion aspiration, GDP of $30 trillion aspiration by 2047 is impossible without integrating women into the workforce. This has been also said by McKinsey report. McKinsey report also said the same thing, that without the 50% of the workforce, you cannot achieve this $30 trillion economy. And core issue is women remain invisible mainly in data, making gaps hard to address. And other thing is women are often invisible in the work they are being done or the work they do, because most of the work they do is care work. So as a result, they are not taken into consideration when we are dealing with the data. Next, Uttar Pradesh WE index, a model, that is India's first district level women's economic empowerment index. A good move from Uttar Pradesh. Of all the states in the India, Uttar Pradesh has come forward with WE model. What is the WE index? Women's economic empowerment index. So this covers 5 levels, that is employment, education and skilling, entrepreneurship, livelihood and mobility, and safety and inclusive infrastructure. So what are the impact of this WEE? Impact is transparent sector reforms, that is new recruitment strategies, women's restrooms in the bus terminals, etc. were because of this WEE index in Uttar Pradesh. Next, it highlights structural drop-offs, that is women in high skilling enrollment but low in entrepreneurship and credit access, and moves focus from participation rates to structural barriers. Very good movement. And the other argues for the systematic needs based on the WE. The systematic needs is gender disaggregated data across all the departments are there. So in MSME, transport, housing, etc., it is disaggregated, gender disaggregated. So we need what? We need gender aggregated data. And beyond counts, track retention, leadership, re-entry and quality of employment for women, and gender budgeting rethink, that is the gender budgeting must apply to all the expenditure and not just the women schemes. Principle is you cannot budget for what you don't measure. Okay, so the gender budgeting we are mainly focusing on women schemes, mainly focusing on schemes that are dedicated to women, only focus on funding for these schemes, but that should not be the way while we do gender budgeting. The gender budgeting should be kept for women across all the schemes, not just women based schemes. Next, way forward is states like AP, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha, Telangana with the $1 trillion ambitions must leverage this gender dividend. Scale up WE index, that is Women Economic Empowerment Index. This should convert into district wise gender action plans. They should be scaled up to all the states in India and use data to guide budgets, infrastructure and reforms, and paradigm shift when needed. That is, the shift should from seeing gender data as a peripheral to making it central to governance. Okay, so this gender data has to be at the center, and surrounding this all the schemes has to be taken away. Only with the proper data can we make schemes which is going to yield outcomes. Without that, the schemes will not yield outcomes, and the same thing that is happening in India and the same thing that is happening at present keeps on repeating. That is, women sidelined in all these important data. To avoid that, we need women data as a central to all the schemes. Okay, very important article with important data provided there. You can note on the data which can be useful for your GS2 and GS3. Next, courts not to mental health is right by Shabin OS. So recently court said some with respect to mental health. The court said that mental health is a right, mental health as a fundamental right. So the other argues that it is a very good move by the government, very good move by the court, and it discusses about this particular case. What is the case background? The case name is Sukhdev Saha versus State of Andhra Pradesh, July 2025. The trigger was a student suicide of 17-year-old NEET aspirant in Visakhapatnam hostel, and father sought CBI inquiry, which was rejected by High Court, appealed to Supreme Court, and the verdict was transferred the investigation to CBI, recognized mental health as integral to right to life under Article 21. Very important. Article 21 talks about right to life and personal liberty. So now right to mental health has been included as a fundamental right under Article 21. And you have to remember the case, that is Sukhdev Saha versus State of Andhra Pradesh. Issued Saha guidelines. So this is the guidelines have been issued by the Supreme Court, and now based on these guidelines there will be either a presidential order until a parliamentary law is brought, and then it will be followed by a parliamentary law. So this is the auxiliary power of Supreme Court under Article 140 to give complete justice to any verdict. Okay, next, significance of this Saha guidelines or the verdict is, if the legal is Mental Healthcare Act of 2017 provided statutory right. Now this statutory right has been elevated to fundamental right under Article 21 by the Supreme Court in the Saha case. Next, guidelines have legislative force until the Parliament passes a full code. Next, normative. Shift student suicides from a personal tragedy to public injustice. People suffering from mental health through depression committing the suicide is not an individualistic mistake. It is not the mistake of the student or the individual, but it is the failure of the public itself. Very important in this aspect. Acknowledges structural victimization. neglect by the state, schools, universities, and the coaching centers. So all these are the stakeholders in the death of a student or a young child in India. It expands victimology, that is, institutions as de facto perpetrators rather than the individual who is committing the suicide here. Next, Saha guidelines, binding interim orders. Schools, colleges, hostels, coaching centers must establish mental health support system. States, union territories bring rule into force within 2 months, and district level monitoring committees to oversee the compliance. And the criminological lens here is structural violence, that is Johann Galtung's theory. This theory says that systematic neglect is causing the harm as blameworthy as direct violence. If you are neglecting a particular issue, and because of that neglect or because of that negligence, if it is causing a harm, it is almost similar to the direct violence, almost similar to you involving and harming a person. So the negligence is equated to direct violence in this Johann Galtung's theory. Student suicides is the consequence of exploitative academic culture and the governance apathy. So here, according to the structural violence theory of John Galtung's, this death of the students in India is not the result of the students, but the result of negligence of the schools, colleges, education system, government, and every other else. Okay. Next, victimology. Students as hidden victims of institutional neglect. Judgment recognizes psychological integrity as a constitutional right, opens path to restorative measures, that is counseling, institution reforms, and preventive accountability. And the challenges ahead is judicial pronouncements alone cannot change entrenched norms. It requires institutional wills like schools, universities, coaching centers, and state investment in resources, counselors, and infrastructure, and effective monitoring to prevent token compliance. All these things have to be addressed in order to bring justice into the Supreme Court's judgment here. So the broader takeaways from this article is law plus criminology plus victimology convergence. That is, harm is not just produced by the individuals but also by the system's negligence, and rights shifted. That is, students from passive subjects to the right holders of the constitutional protection. Next, societal challenge. Recognizing that neglect, indifference, and structural pressures can be deadly as direct violence. A very important Supreme Court judgment here. And the fourth article is from the text and context of Hindu. It talks about what is involution in the Chinese EV sector. First, you'll understand what is involution. Involution or neijuan, and neijuan is a word from Chinese, describes a situation where firms in a crowded market compete so intensely that everyone works harder but achieves diminishing or negative returns. Okay, get the point that there are two. I will just explain with an example. There are two firms. I will tell you the story of Pepsi and Coca-Cola. Pepsi and Coca-Cola. They went through a phase called as involution. Coca-Cola was the leader in carbonated drinks in the world, So Pepsi became with a better taste and better drink. But despite that, Coca-Cola was always winning. So what the Pepsi started doing is they started reducing the rate. It should be dollar actually. They started reducing the price of the Pepsi. When they started reducing the price of the Pepsi, in order to compete with them, Coca-Cola also started reducing the rates or the price. As a result, both were in the loss. Instead of achieving the profit, both were in the loss. So finally, they decided that by reducing the prices, no, it is not helping either of us. So we should cap the price drop, and then we should sell it to the market. Okay, this is where there is a stringent competition that in order to get the consumers, you try to reduce the cost. When you reduce the cost and you start doing more hard work, but the outcomes or the profit goes on diminishing. That is involution. That is what is happening at the moment in the EV sector in China, because so many companies are there and so many people are working hard, but the returns are diminishing or even in negative terms. We'll just discuss first. 120 to 130 Chinese EV makers are locked in the cutthroat price war. There are 120 to 130 Chinese electric vehicle makers are there. 120 to 130 companies are there that are making electric vehicles in China. So many companies are there. So obviously the competition is very high. Since the competition is very high, they have to do something else. If the standard is same, if the price are same, then obviously no one is going to get a benefit. If the standard is same, the company which is going to provide cars or the electric vehicles at the cheaper rate is going to the winner here. That is what is happening here. Prices have been slashed so much that the vehicles are sold below the production cost itself. Like normally whatever you produce, that is the production cost. On that you will have certain margins and you will be sold at a market price. And whatever this margin and whatever the taxes are added on this one is the market price, and whatever this margin is there, that is a profit for the production companies, profit for producing companies. But now if you are selling them below the production cost, obviously you are incurring loss here. Okay, next, firms struggle to recover or cover the R&D and orientation expenses, which is leading to losses, bankruptcies, and forced exit from the EV market. Impact is like Clifford Gates' rice farming analogy. More effort, that is competition, innovation, and subsidies, is poured in, but margins and profitability is shrinking. Clifford Gates is one of the major anthropologists and also sociologists, you can call him. He talked about more effort that is being put in rice farming technologies, but the outcome is very less. Next, why has the innovation worsened in the electric vehicles in EV sectors in China? One is overcapacity in China, that is, there is massive state support plus industrial policy led to oversupply, and trade barriers abroad, that is, USA has 100% tariffs, effectively a ban on Chinese electric vehicles in USA as well, completely. And European Union, there is countervailing duties, that is 17% to 35% on top of 10% import duty, and Turkey has imposed 40% and Mexico 50% for the suit of this imposition on Chinese EV vehicles. These moves restricted China's export outlets, forcing intensified competition at the home. When you cannot sell them abroad, when you cannot use the global market for your benefit, obviously you are forced to sell within your market, because the domestic market is only minute compared to the global market. Now you have to compete based on the price so that more people buy your goods. That is what is happening in China. Now you can call it an example of like failure of one's own success. Okay, victim of one's own success, you can say. Domestic demand is growing but not fast enough to absorb all the supply. Next, so how is China tackling involution and EV price wars? Policy interventions in MIIT, that is May 2025, a pledge to rein in price wars. Politburo 2025 that framed Xi's stance as a war on price wars, and draft pricing law which prohibits below cost selling, algorithmic pricing abuses by platforms. And Xi Jinping in September 2025 wrote an article to Quishi, said that he will curb disorderly competition, push for an orderly exit of outdated capacity, and prioritize quality over quantity. So that is what Xi Jinping has said now. We have to wait and see. Then second aspect is industry restructuring, that is encouraging consolidation, that is smaller, weaker EV makers to exit or merge with the larger ones. SOEs and top players like BYD, Geely, and SAIC expected to survive and dominate, obviously, because they are so big now. And global diversification, that is Chinese OEMs investing in the local production abroad, that is BYD in Hungary and Turkey, and targeting emerging markets such as Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, where tariffs are lower and EV penetration is still growing. So now they are focusing on all the other countries where there is a need for electric vehicles, where you can set up plants and produce there itself to avoid all the import duties. Next, broader implications is for China, short-term pain, that is bankruptcies, layoffs, but medium-term industry stabilization with the fewer and stronger players. If the smaller EV manufacturers are included or merged in the larger ones. Then for Europe and USA, tariffs may only delay but not prevent Chinese EV dominance, especially as Chinese firms localize production. For emerging markets, China remains the biggest EV supplier, sharpening or shaping the global clean mobility transition. So what should India do? India should initially protect its EV sectors, protect the EV sector which is in nascent stage, still. So in order to protect this, India should also impose certain tariff on Chinese goods, because this is what happened in the with respect to India and China in the early 1990s and 2000s and 2010s as well, where China started producing so much of mobile phones, so much of electric vehicles, electric goods, etc., the electronic goods, that there was always the competition between those companies. So in order to avoid this competition, in order to get away from the loss, they started dumping in India. So who was the sufferer here? Indian local manufacturers. So they started suffering. In order to avoid this same method to electric vehicle sector, what should India do? India should be more careful. India should have certain tariff on these Chinese electric vehicles, so that Indian goods can also compete in Indian market. Okay, so we have to wait and see what will be the future. Next, prelims pointers. First is International Electrotechnical Commission. Okay, International Electrotechnical Commission, established in 1906, headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, and nature is non-profit and standard setting body. And the mandate is it prepares and publishes international standards for electrical, electronic, and related technologies. And the reach is this standard set up by international IEC is used in 150 plus countries, helps global harmonization. And the governance is Standardization Management Board handles technical policy, and the network has approximately 30,000 experts worldwide. Collaboration is works with International Standard Organization and ITU. Next, India and IEC 2025. That is, the 89th General Meeting of IEC is happening in New Delhi between 15 to 19 September 2025 in Bharata Mandapam in New Delhi. That is why it is in news. Significance is India is hosting for the fourth time. Now, earlier 1960, 1997, and 2013, and after almost 12 years delay, after 12 years gap, India is hosting this one. What is the importance for this India? It enhances global role in tech standardization, boosts India's electrical and electronics exports by aligning with the global norms, symbolic of India's growing presence in the global standard setting diplomacy. So very important. Small topic but very important. International Electrotechnical Commission. Okay, IEC, which sets standards for electronic goods. Next, and the final article for the day is about Ho tribe. Why they are in news? That is, in West Singhbum of Jharkhand district or Jharkhand state, Ho tribe protested against district administration for interference in their traditional monkey munda governance system. It reflects tribal assertion of autonomy and resistance to state intrusion into customary governance. So what is this? First we will understand about Ho, and then we will understand about monkey munda governance system. Key facts is the ethnic group, they belong to Austroasiatic Munda tribe. Self-identity, they consider themselves as Ho, Hodoko, Horo, which means human being. Distribution mainly found in Kolhan region of Jharkhand and also Odisha, West Bengal and Bihar. Religion is 90% of Ho tribes follow Sarnaism. Sarnaism is nothing but nature worship. Deori is a village priest and Deova is a spirit doctor. Sacrifices in sacred groves. Next, they follow a Ho language which is Austroasiatic related to Mundari language. The occupation, they are mainly predominantly agriculturists, some in mining as well. Society is women enjoy relatively higher status. Villages have akra, that is dancing grounds under big tree. Culture, music with the dama, dholak and dumeng, mandar, rutu, etc., etc. So this is about Ho tribes. Then what is this? Monkey Munda self-governance system. Monkey Munda self-governance. Who is Munda? Munda is the village head. It is a hereditary post, resolves socio-political disputes at the village level, and monkey, which is a cluster head, supervises a PID, that is 8 to 15 villages together are called as PID, and dispute resolution. Case unresolved at Munda levels are escalated to monkey. Okay, state which are unresolved at the Munda level are escalated to monkey, and the scope is monkey or monkey. Okay, it is Hindi or something. Internal self-governance only, or self-rule only, no role in land, revenue and taxation, purely a community-based governance systems. So students of anthropology, this particular article or this particular words are going to be very important for you. Munda monkey, self-governance system of Ho tribe. Okay, so these are the articles which I want to discuss with you today. If you like the video, then please hit the like button, comment on it, and also like and subscribe to the channel. With this, I will end the video. Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka.